Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackie and Judd on SKOR North and SKORNorth.com.
Honestly, when I went to Golden State, I seen how I got to be a sponge to Draymond, Steph, and Clay, and all those dudes, and I seen how they carried themselves, and it's a reason that they're winning just from them being them. But Draymond was that, he was vocal. He was always helping one another. If he was guarding the best player on the floor, he still helped, elsewhere. He never treated anybody like they were like, I got to deny this guy, There's only a few of those in the league, but if he's not guarding one, even if he is, he's still there and he's helping, and you hear his voice. It gives guys that are on the ball confidence. It gives guys that are, low, that their next rotation. And like I said, I'm just a fan of the game, so I try to voice it. Not a lot of people voice stuff on the court during the games.
What was D'Lo wearing there? Was it like a gray scarf backwards?
Yeah, I think like a big old winter scarf.
It's like
a pea coat, I think, too.
I don't know. It looked like I don't know what kind of fashion statement that was, but I kind of like it.
I dig it.
Kind of want to see Judd.
What's that coat cost?
Similar.
Probably more than my house.
Minimum. Well, I was gonna say minimum $2,000. I don't think it's like a $15,000. I mean, maybe.
Okay.
I don't know.
I just don't know.
He didn't get it at Old Navy, I think. All due respect, if Old Navy wants to
And all due
sponsor
respect,
Mackie and Judd,
Old Navy, I'll take a coat from
Navy
Old
store.
Navy.
That is
Performance
You put them down.
fleece.
Not me, man. I'll take what. Look, that's quality stuff. Old Navy, okay?
Yes, you're damn right. Speaking of quality stuff, this is Mackie and Judd. Daily Minnesota sports, entertainment, fodder, loathing, therapy. And it's a Feedback Friday where we take all of your questions, comments, concerns via the SKOR North app's feedback tab. You can also hit us up in the YouTube comment sections and other platforms. And we turn the show over to you guys. You guys drive the show on Fridays until we give the keys to Judd's keys later to a Vikings victory.
Oh,
Give Keys a little 30 more minutes to sleep.
It was
here.
a thirsty Thursday yesterday. I'm sure Keys is ready to rock. So
He's ready to go. I don't know how.
Feeling up. All right, boys, let's start Feedback Friday here. Speaking of D'Lo, with just a few pieces of D'Lo feedback for the show. I've got 3 of them, and we can respond here. Ubre London in the YouTube comment section says, D'Lo scores 27 in the fourth quarter in overtime, and these bozos talk about the one block Anthony Edwards had on Embiid, who was double-teamed. Whole bunch of D'Lo haters. Black Spine on YouTube says, I think our boy Mackie needs to reevaluate his I'm done with D'Lo, he's not a winner opinion. That did make old tweets exposed yesterday. So, and then Jose Alberto on YouTube says, these guys are Ant fans. They hate D'Lo and Cat. D'Lo has been the most important player on this team, and it's not close. Cat is the best player. Do you think we have not given D'Lo enough pie chart of praise on this show so far?
That's the only thing I would say among those comments that's probably accurate, but I feel like we are beginning to, rightfully so. I feel like there was a time earlier in the season where it was probably right to expect more. Dex and I have talked about this on Judd's Hockey Show a bunch, but there is a weird thing in this town about expecting more, and it's like when guys give more, it's like, well, you guys didn't get it. Well, no, actually we expected more, and now we're seeing that. The Cat thing is much more complicated. I don't feel that we crap on Cat. I think that we see Cat as being the tremendous talent that Cat is, and therefore expect that. But we also continually preface our comments with, he's a marvelous player. He's great at this. He's great at that. I agree. He's probably, just skill-wise, the most talented player on this team. So the one thing I would say in regards to those comments, and Phil, you have been harder on D'Lo than us for sure.
Oh, sure. Throw me under the bus. Yeah.
You have
just shove me right out. Just shove me right out into the street. Yeah.
I'll be very Cousins-like.
Pop quiz, hot shot.
I'll be very Cousins-like. Exactly right. And I will throw you right below that bus. But anyway, I think we are also very appreciative of when guys do have good games. And I don't think there's something wrong with pointing out what Ant did well. Like if Ant made a good play and we talk about that play too, okay, yeah, he made a good play. So
yeah, I think. Well, I'll start with D'Lo. So I think he's playing the best defense of his career. I think he's taken on more of a leadership role than maybe at any point in his career. You could say, well, he was a leader in Brooklyn. I think he has evolved more as a leader and as a defensive player now than like we've seen some hockey stick growth, so to speak, in those departments. And even though his shot hasn't even really started, like he's had some hot games, but he's had a lot of 3 for 16, 4 for 14. He had a 3 for 18 the other night. And despite that, he has been one of the most valuable players. Like, and you could, if you look at like plus minus, he's been the most valuable player on the team in terms of like his impact on plus minus when he's in the game. And I love what he said after that Sixers game. So they go into Philadelphia and Joel Embiid decides, all right, I finally feel right enough to now come back. 3 weeks out with COVID, but now that the Timberwolves are in town, yep, I'm feeling 100% now. And they go into double overtime. D'Lo hits a bunch of dagger shots, and they beat the Sixers. And after the game, he goes on Bally Sports North, and he says, some of their guys decided that tonight was the night that they were going to come back because the Timberwolves are in town, but, it ain't so sweet, or whatever he said. And he said, we're going to put the league on notice. But it was in kind of a couched, humble way, too. And I loved it. He called out Joel Embiid. Like, this team has been a punching bag for so long. Mm-hmm. Most of 17 years. They've just been a laughingstock and a punching bag. And I like that they are punching back both on the court and through the media. And I like that D'Lo has been one of the guys that's stepped up and has led that charge. And so on the Ant side of things, I think long-term, the goal isn't sneak into the playoffs. The goal is, they're not being held to this standard now. But, like, eventually, let's do some damage in the Western Conference, right? Like, as the Warriors age out and as LeBron, who's already kind of aging out, who's next, right? Chris Paul's going to age out. The Suns will be good after Chris Paul, but there's going to be some spots in the top 4 slots in the West, and I think Anthony Edwards is the driving force for that level in like a year or two. I mean, look at the guy. He's a 234-pound freight train who can shoot threes. He takes over games. He's, 20 years old? And so if the praise of Anthony Edwards has made it seem like, we're not praising the other two guys enough, like it's been a collective positive effort to get this team to 500 through 20 games. I think Anthony Edwards, he's kind of a beta. Like, he's a really talented player, but he's not a grab the franchise or grab the game by the jugular type of a guy, right? Whatever. It's not a knock. He's one of the top 20, 25 players in the NBA. I just think Ant has insane upside compared to the other two, and I'll try to do a better job of not like demeaning the other two while I praise Ant, if that's how it's coming off to the audience. Yeah, so that's where I'm at with this.
The difference there too, though, that's very important to clarify, is in year 2 of Cat, we didn't say what we do now. So like if Ant has bad games or bad stretches by year 5 or 6, our reaction, like the simplest explanation is this: Ant's in year 2, Cat's in year 6 now, 7. He's been around for a while.
Yeah.
But the point is, the expectations by this point in Cat's career are substantially higher, and they should be. So like don't confuse how we contextualize a guy in his 2nd year with his 7th year. The guy in his 7th year needs to be treated much harsher. Like that's simple.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, that's fair. Yeah. And I think by and large, the formula has worked just the way that Gerson Rosas and even the way that Ryan Saunders thought it was going to work, when he was the coach. But credit to Chris Finch for just molding this and getting everyone on the same page. It's when a team is playing this well defensively for the most part. I know they got trucked in the paint in their last game, and Montrezl Harrell had 10 dunks. So, they're not playing 2003 Pistons defense every night, but when you're buying in defensively like these guys are, they're clearly listening to Chris Finch, and there's a connection there, and they're buying into each other, and Patrick Beverley's adding some of this. But I think I would credit D'Lo's leadership and him buying in first and foremost, maybe above all else. So huge credit. Sorry, Declan, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think what is so impressive about D'Lo, and this is something I haven't really noticed until this season specifically, because, he has a tendency to be a chucker, right? Like he can throw some bricks up there, even though he's a great shot maker. But watching him lately, I think I've underestimated, a lot of other Wolves fans have estimated just how intelligent and how smart he is on the court. Like, he's not just a guy that's going to come up and shoot a bunch of shots because he's an elite shot maker. The dude has insane basketball IQ, just the way he's talking about defense right there. I remember, I think it was earlier this week, Dane Moore pointed out that every time D'Lo was bringing up the ball, he was calling out all of Indiana's plays, basically. Like, his basketball IQ is an unquantifiable box score stat, and I think sometimes fans forget about how actually smart and intelligent this dude is on the court.
Yep, and I would say all of those positive things said, don't get all bristled when he goes 3 for 18 and gets called on it. Like,
Right.
Don't go 3 for 8. He's had a lot of those games, but those games aren't the totality of his value this season. He has been valuable despite not finding it. He's shooting 38% this season, and he's been like a major positive driving force for this team. Imagine once that field goal percentage goes up to where it should be, which is more in like the mid-40s, hopefully. So
it's okay to expect more.
Yeah, that's fair. It's also okay to admit that you were wrong when you tweeted things like, I'm out on D'Lo.
Yeah, but
6 games into the season, so
that
was a little aggressive. It was a little aggressive.
Yeah, but you're an instant reaction, hard on the sleeve Wolves guy. That's the thing.
Yeah. All right. There's some good ones this week here. Art Vandalay on YouTube, the YouTube comment section, says, why doesn't Andre Patterson get no blame for the terrible Vikings defense? The coaching staff, the entire defense, and the offensive line all deserve more pie chart of blame than Kirk Cousins. Your thoughts?
So he wants what? He wants the
thinks we're paying too much attention to Kirk Cousins this week, and not enough attention to
the defensive line was all out. The defensive line, every starter was out. So the backups were in, which is not going to be as good. Look, I mean, I think we addressed this last week. This defense isn't even close to being as good as we thought. I think they're 28th right now in yards against.
It was before Danielle Hunter went out. It was a top 15 defense in a lot of different categories.
But what I'm saying is it's just not as good. Like this defense, by the time we got to last week, and there are no defensive linemen who were starters playing, like my expectation shifts to, okay, who's going to save the day? Because it's not going to be the backups. They're not going to be the same. So that's why, I mean, Kirk is your starting QB. And we also blamed the offense. Like, we blamed Kirk, but the offense also didn't pull its share of the weight. But that was a game in which I think you had to leave the locker room in San Francisco going into that game saying, we probably have to score 40 points. That's simple.
The defense, I know we're all looking now at like the total defensive stats for the season, but if you looked at them before Danielle Hunter went out, and then after that it was like Michael Pierce and Tomlinson put on the COVID list and stuff. This defense, it wasn't 2017, but this defense was doing a very good job, largely in pass defense and pressures. I mean, they were leading the league in sacks and pressures through like the first 6 weeks, and then Danielle Hunter went down. So, but it's also a testament to how hard it is to build and keep a great defense together. That if you're putting a cap on your offense, either through scheme or philosophy or by not having a good enough offensive line, and you're saying, listen, we're going to put a cap on our offense because we think we can win games with defense. Okay, good luck keeping everyone healthy. Good luck keeping everyone in their prime, everyone under the salary cap and all those things. And the Vikings are getting bit by the injury bug. So, again, there's pie chart of blame, which we do every Monday. But then there's like the pie chart of who's saving the day. Who's going to save the day? It's not going to be James Lynch or whatever. Like it's, it's not going to be DJ Wanham. It has to be Kirk Cousins and the offense.
Yes. And here, the important thing, so the Vikings right now are giving us a gift. And I hope we can see this, okay? The Vikings are giving us the gift of use your own thoughts and eyes, not what the team thinks. The Vikings think, because their coach does, that they're built around defense. That's what he wants. That's his desire in life, okay? It's not correct. Like, I can flat out tell you, there's no debate here. He's seeing it wrong. This team is built around offense. Therefore, my expectation is you're going to have to ride what you got, which is offense.
Yes.
I don't care what the team thinks. The team's wrong in this case.
This is one of your favorite cooking shows. And Mike Zimmer has come on as a contestant. I cook steaks.
Yep.
Okay, that's awesome. You definitely cook steaks, but the ingredients for this contest are seafood and greens or whatever. It's like,
Phil.
no, I need a steak.
No,
I can't
Phil.
win with seafood. I can't cook a salmon. I can't cook swordfish.
Dex and I broke this down though on JHS, which you can find last night.
Judd's hockey show for those
hockey show
uninitiated.
After the Wild beat the Devils, okay? And we broke this down. Here is what the Wild is presenting right now. The Wild is among all of the things going well, possibly the most important is they are being run and structured and they were put together incredibly well. There are things they do I don't get, but I see them unfold and I'm like, oh, now I get it. You know more than I do about this. Very smart, very smart. And then I learn. The Vikings are doing no such thing right now. We always, from the time that we're small, we always want to believe somebody knows more because they've got the, in air quotes, authority, right? Well, I'm the general manager of the Vikings. I must know. I mean, he must know what he's doing, right?
I got that yesterday. Why don't you have Clint Kubiak's job? You think you have all the answers? Why don't you? Do you think you could do a better job than Clint Kubiak? No, of course not. Doesn't mean that I can't have an opinion. Doesn't mean that Clint Kubiak knows more than the other offensive coordinators. Clearly, he doesn't.
But what you could do is on game day, I agree, because like you couldn't call plays. I couldn't. That's very true. But what you could do is Monday through Friday, basically, you would probably have a fresher set of eyes, not to be so stuck in what you think is best, and to appreciate the people around you and say, what do they do best? Which is what the Vikings don't do. But we fall into these traps, certain folks do, of, well, Falvey runs the Twins. He knows more. Sometimes I don't think so.
Yeah.
Bill Guerin right now, I'm going to tell you, knows more. I watch him and I'm like, I'm learning.
I will never pretend like I can do a professional sports general manager's job or coach or coordinator's job within 1% of their ability. Like, just to throw that out. But to your point, we think because someone is a general manager or a president of sports operations, like we've been around enough of these people in our careers. I know that we sit here in our little studios and stuff, and we're staring at you on the YouTube channel. But like for large chunks of our careers,
yes,
and you guys go to games all the time, much more than I do, but we have covered teams. We have built relationships with these people. I don't want to throw anyone on the bus, but like they're not as smart oftentimes as you think, or as presidents of other companies outside of sports. And so to think that like they should be, free of criticism because they must know better, they must be geniuses, is not true. David Kahn was a president of basketball operations for an NBA basketball team.
Well, you know who else, Phil? Bill Smith. I mean, Bill Smith was sort of behind the scenes, not a real baseball guy.
Yeah.
And he held that job for how long?
About 4 years.
And that doesn't make him a bad guy, but I'm just saying that, like, if you said, well, Bill Smith knows more, does he really?
Yeah. All right, this one's more targeted at me specifically. You guys are welcome to chime in here. But Dom Clare, noted Vikings Twitter enthusiast. This was in sort of a back and forth about Kirk versus the things around Kirk, and I made note that it's been 110 starts across 7 years, and he's under 500. Most of the other quarterbacks who have the stats that he has, the team records are much better. Not most, like pretty much all. And Dom said, list the quarterbacks with over 100 starts that have a winning record with similar circumstances to what Kirk Cousins has dealt with. And I just want to use this because I see a lot of this, all right? And I don't want to make this a whole like crap on Kirk thing, but because Kirk is a very good quarterback. Kirk's one of the 15 best quarterbacks in the world, but he's taking up a ridiculously high percentage of the cap, and he comes short in a lot of big games and whatnot. But people make it sound sometimes like Kirk Cousins has played for the Lions for his whole career. Well, look at the circumstances he's had to deal with. Okay, well, let's talk about those circumstances. He's had some of the best weapons on offense, I would argue, for sure with the Vikings. And even, like, he had some weapons. He had Jordan Reed and Pierre Garçon. Like, he didn't have the best weapons in Washington. But with Minnesota, he's had Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook. Like, he's had reliable Kyle Rudolph in his prime a few years ago, Irv Smith. Like, there's a lot of quarterbacks that have come nowhere near having that amount of weapons on offense. When he was in Washington and Minnesota, he's had offensive coordinators that a short while later went on to become NFL head coach of the year in Sean McVay and Kevin Stefanski. So he's worked with some of the more like innovative leaders on offense in the league. And he's also had a couple top 10 defenses as well to work with. You know, this year, and last year, not so much. I just think like the reality is there will never be, very rarely, even for the greatest quarterbacks of all time, perfect circumstances. You're not going to have, people expect like, okay, once you get great offensive line, great defense, great weapons, great coaching, then we can focus on the quarterback. That's not how the NFL works. You're not going to, like the best quarterbacks, despite having imperfect circumstances and deficiencies and injuries or, you know, a bad coach or whatever, help their teams win more games than Cousins has over a 100-game sample. And I'll even throw out like the Hall of Famers, the Aaron Rodgers, the Tom Brady's. Tony Romo's Cowboys teams were 78-49 with him over a 140-game stretch. Matt Ryan's Falcons teams. By the way, the Cowboys with Tony Romo and the Falcons with Matt Ryan, pretty sure there's been some flaws over the years with multiple coaches and defenses and stuff. Matt Ryan's teams are like 20 games over 500 over a 100 whatever game sample. I know Russell Wilson's probably more in the Hall of Fame category, but the Seahawks have had garbage offensive lines. They've had garbage defenses. They have not had a Dalvin Cook at running back since Marshawn Lynch retired years ago. His teams are 151-1 over 150 games. And so the end of my rant here will be, stop making it seem like Cousins plays for the Lions. He doesn't. And stop making it sound like he needs perfect circumstances for him to be able to finally like help lead a team to where they're supposed to go.
People who say that don't watch other games, because this league is built on your circumstances not being perfect. That's the whole point of the league. I mean, every Sunday you see teams that have to overcome flaws. That's how the league is built. So yeah, it's weird. It's just weird. I can't explain it now. We've got so many people in this town who want to fall on the sword for players as opposed to care about their team. I just stop it. Just stop it.
I feel like to Dominic's point and other Vikings fans points out there, that is he the unluckiest quarterback, and what other quarterbacks have been there? I mean, you could maybe make a case that Matt Stafford in his first 7-8 years in Detroit, I mean, a good quarterback who was being held down by a terrible organization, but had a Hall of Fame wide receiver, not always great teams around him, but clearly a very talented quarterback that had circumstances around him that weren't perfect, but he wasn't able to rise up really and still be able to do that. That's like the only guy I can really like legitimately think of that is similar. And Stafford's now with the Rams. He's got a great head coach, and I know the Rams are scuffling over this last month, but is that the only way? You have to unplug Matt Stafford and give him the most genius head coach, and now all of a sudden the perception of him changes? Like that's the only guy I can look at from the first 100 games and think, oh, okay, I guess maybe he's Matt Stafford, but I don't think it is. I think it's different.
But this comes down to me, a very simple thing. And the people that consume our show, I appreciate, and I don't think that they, for the most part, fall into this. Quit trying to make excuses for players that actually are to the detriment of your team. Do you care about the Vikings or Kirk? Because that's the question. And if you say, well, I'm a Vikings fan.
But a lot of people think that he's not only is he not a detriment, that he is the only thing that's propping this whole house of cards up. But that's a lot of people think that.
Right. But what I'm saying is I'm trying to program their brains differently, because that's incorrect. The league is built on flaws. The league is built on imperfect circumstances. And the question is, who is the team that can overcome that in what is now a 17-game season. And but like we're always looking for, well, Phil's tough on D'Lo and Kirk did this well. Do you care about the Wolves, the Wild, the Vikings, the Twins, the Lynx, or do you care about individual players? Because if you say I don't really care about the team, then that's cool. Then you know what? Protect your player. But if you sit down on Sunday and want your team to be successful, start to look for, and I know it's not as much fun, but it's how you win. Start to look for the flaws in things that can be fixed across the board, not who can I defend. And that's where this market, including us, people in our end especially, that's where we struggle, because a lot of us have friends. Oh man, Kirk's a good guy. I talk to him all the time. I'd like to defend Kirk. We all have friends. We all have agendas. And sometimes that crap needs to be put aside for the fact that you want to win. And if you tell me, Judd, I don't really care about winning, like you guys on your show talk about it, I just don't give a damn. That's cool too. You're in the wrong place. You're in the right town. But that's what it comes down to. So if you are like looking to defend Kirk or D'Lo, who by the way I like, he's fine. Or
I don't think D'Lo and Kirk are necessarily
no, but I'm just saying if a player, I'm lumping players that people are looking to just protect. I mean, guess what? Parise, Suter, Zucker, Sano.
No.
Think about all of the time. Think about where the Wild is right now, and think about how long people spent their time beating their heads against the wall to tell people like Judd Zulgad, you're wrong about those guys. They're good. You don't understand. Bill Guerin came in and saw what I saw. The difference is he's won basically 4 Stanley Cups and said, and
now they're like in position to win one this year.
But why are they there? Why are they there? Because somebody came in and said, this is BS, which is what this show does, and which is what our viewers and listeners, and I really appreciate this, a lot of them do. I mean, Ventline is full of people like us who are tired of agendas of defending players and just want the damn team to win games and possibly a championship.
Yeah. Well, one last quick thought on Kirk, because there's another question here that I think is going to make Judd's head explode. It is amazing how he can avoid, not on this show, but he can avoid blame for almost every loss because he doesn't throw a lot of interceptions. His passer rating is always high. And so it's very rarely going to be primarily his fault when the team loses. But then he avoids all criticism if the team needs someone to throw a, flotation device, and he stands there and it's like, I'm sorry, I can't bail you out here. Now, has he bailed the Vikings out 2 or 3 times this season? Absolutely. When you zoom out to his entire career of 100+ games, and you take the 4 years of Vikings and you take the 3 years of Washington, it's a different story. He still has the rest of this season. This is an imperfect team. But there's still enough here, and the schedule is favorable enough to do some damage. And the defense isn't going to magically get fully healthy. Danielle Hunter's not coming back. The coaching staff's not going to be perfect. It's on you to bail this thing out. And some people feel uncomfortable with that conversation. Vicodontis Rex on Twitter, which is a great handle.
Great handle.
Why do Minnesota writers hate the Vikings so much? All I see is negativity.
Where are you looking besides?
Well, I think he's talking.
Some stuff I write.
No, well, Courtney is critical.
Mm-hmm.
Chad Graff is properly critical. Matthew Collar is properly critical. Judd is properly critical. I think there's a lot of people who are
right, but that's
Vikings
not hate.
haters.
But that's not hate. That's
okay,
properly
hater.
critical. That's
right,
properly critical.
Judd here for haterade.
There are
when I sit down to watch Vikings.
Vicodontis Rex, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Great handle.
Vicodontis Rex, there are numerous outlets that you can go to that will give you what you want. Vikings.com is a great place to start. It's fantastic. They give you analysis and breakdown of the upcoming game, and they'll properly point out matchups to watch and stuff. But I think that you're taking hate. Here's my challenge. Vicodontis, I want you to subscribe to the Boston Globe and New York Post for a month and read their coverage of their teams, and then come back and tell me if you think that Courtney Cronin, Matthew Collar, Judd Zulgad, Chad Graff hate the Vikings.
Arif Hassan, hater.
Hater.
These haters. I think so. When I read this comment, why do Minnesota, and I'll interpret this to say not just writers, but why are people critical of the Vikings? All I see is hate. I translate in my head to say, you want to be lied to. This is a 5-6 football team that hasn't been above 500 in almost 700 days. They're going to miss the playoffs if they're not careful for a third year in 4 tries with Kirk Cousins and Mike Zimmer. They've only been to the playoffs like 6 or 7 times in the last 20 years. So if we want to zoom out to like the macro here, we want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die. We talk about that every day on Purple Daily. And so why would we be happy with a team that's been below 500 for 700 days? And I know that there's a lot of people, stakeholders that have microphones or write about the team that I think their loyalty is more with their relationships with the team than it is to the audience. I would rather tell you the truth personally than just choose optimism for the sake of like preserving a relationship with someone on the team. I feel like our loyalty is to the audience and to the fans.
Yeah, of course.
And the truth is, this franchise, if your goal is to win a Super Bowl, is wildly underperforming. And so if you want to call that hate, you can call it hate. If all of it's through the prism of wanting them to win a Super Bowl, I don't know how it can possibly be hate. I think it's about
It's tough love.
Poking holes and tough love.
It's tough love. We're
Tough
like
love.
good parents, man. We're like, but it's weird that I feel like there's a certain subset, and it's probably not huge. It feels bigger than it probably is, of fans that feel that the media that's not in their mind positive enough about the Vikings should, quote, come around. Why don't you come around and see it the way that certain folks do? And you know what? That's just not possible. It's not good. And, Vikings.com is a great place to go and stay. Vikings.com will give you what you want. It will spin things positively, and you will be very pleased. But if you think that the independent press in this town is just going to all like be like, well, yeah, I mean, Kirk's just fine. I don't get what you. I get what you want. I don't think it's healthy.
That felt therapeutic. I feel like we find ourselves sort of explaining our stand, and we disagree on things on the show here too. But I think where we do form a united front is, man, there's just a real aversion to like having expectations for your favorite team. And then the pushback I've been seeing this week more than any week is, so you really think that you having high expectations on your little Mackie and Judd and Purple Daily show is going to really make a difference? I don't know if it's going to make a difference, but I again, we're speaking to the audience.
Well,
we're speaking to you guys.
I don't think the three of us will make a direct impact. I do think that when we do Vent Line and we have the amount of smart, intelligent Vikings fans come on, yes, that's a unified enough front and a bit big enough voice that I'm going to tell you right now, the people that consume us and are really, really smart and good, yes, I think that does. 3 people, like if we were the only 3 people that cared about a Super Bowl, then no. I think it's fun, but it basically goes nowhere. But when you see the amount of people that join us on Vent Line, yes, you can't tell me that the Vikings don't care about, like, oh, who cares about them? That's a fairly large group.
Yeah. All right, let's pause it here, boys. Plus, I think we're having some weird internet issues here. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's the Vikings, Rick Spielman's gremlin,
Vikings media.
Run, yes.
Vikings.com.
So we'll pause it, and then we'll see if we can nudge Judd's keys to a Vikings victory to show his face here. Mackie and Judd.